Hey guys, I want to take a minute here and we're going to talk about real world experience and how exactly it applies to you guys. And by you guys, I mean individuals who are actually doing some training. Um, in order to do that, I want to talk to you about two different individuals that I have known for years and years. One was an Army Ranger, did 2 tours in Iraq, I think cumulatively a little over 2 years' time in Iraq. He was over there during 2003, 2004 area where things were really kind of at their peak. Really a lot of nastiness going on. And in that particular instance, this individual, based on his own testimony, based on his entire unit as well, not one of these guys ever saw hand-to-hand combat. Not one. By the same token, another individual, never been in the military, never been in law enforcement. He actually worked in security loss prevention for a major department chain. I'll just say that. I'm not going to mention specifics. In a chain that allowed them to actually go hands-on with shoplifters. This individual was probably in at least 1 to 2 fights per week dealing with shoplifters. Actual physical hand-to-hand altercations, some of which included edged weapons, box cutters, screwdrivers, things like this, some of which involved multiple attackers. I don't think he was ever in a situation where they ever had to deal with a firearm. But the point of what I'm trying to get at here is that we tend to carry this inherent bias, or we have a tendency to get caught up in these buzzwords like, real world experience, as if somehow operating in a conflict zone somehow qualifies you to come back here and then pass those skills on to the civilian populace who are never going to be in those types of scenarios. And in fact, many of the techniques and procedures that are developed could potentially even be harmful. So I want you to think about real world experience and what that term actually means. It means exactly what it says, real world experience. And understand that the real world that many times a lot of these guys who are coming back from overseas is talking about is not the same world that the average civilian, soccer mom, father, of 2, things like this. It's not the same world that these individuals actually live in. So the applicability of the skills that are being brought back, in some cases, there is some crossover. In many cases, there may not be. So understand what it is that you're training. Understand that a lot of the stuff that is being passed around out there on both sides of the house is theory-based. It's theory-based on training. That training is then taken into whichever operational environment, whether that be a conflict zone or whether that just simply be a department store security. In either case, you have to look at the real world experience of the individual that is actually doing the training and actually ask the question, how many conflicts have you been in? If you're going to teach combatives, how many altercations have you been in by yourself without the assistance of a team, where you have had to deal with an edged weapon, where you have had to deal with a firearm while you're in an unarmed scenario? Because you can't honestly go out there and claim real world experience if those are the types of techniques that you're going to be teaching and you've never actually been in those types of scenarios. Now, I'm not saying that none of these people have. I understand that there's some units where guys have probably done these things. But what I want you to understand is that by and large, as a whole, guys who are tasked with actually taking down structures in some of the most hostile areas in the world still have never actually had to deal with an edged weapon, still have never had to actually be in a situation where they've had to deal with multiple attackers by themselves with a firearm. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like it does in the movies. And anybody who is trying to kind of sell you that without actually legitimizing their claims, they're doing it deceitfully. So one of the reasons why, or one of the things that I've told you guys in the past, is that I am not a salesman. I've been overseas working. I've been here working. I can tell you I've been actually shot at just as many times overseas as I've been here. That's just the reality of it. I've had to deal with edged weapons on more occasions here within the continental United States working than I ever had to overseas. That's just the reality. The fact is when you're in a combat zone and you're all kitted up with body armor and you're carrying overtly and stuff like that, a knife fight is kind of the least of my concerns. I have plenty of other weapons to utilize, and I have plenty of other resources to utilize. Things change dramatically when all of a sudden you're working in an environment over here where you don't have access to body armor and you don't have the ability to carry a firearm because your client wasn't able to procure that for you. So now you're carrying without the benefit of a firearm, and maybe all you have is an edged weapon, or maybe you're facing somebody with an edged weapon and you don't have anything. And you have to ask yourself, given those two different worldviews, which one is going to be more applicable to you as a civilian taking your wife out on date night to the movies? So you guys think about that. Train hard.